Hey, Scott.
First of all, please send my best to Hannah and give,
I will. I
wish
absolutely
her.
will do. She's downstairs trying not to make noise, but I'm just praying that the children don't wake up. Otherwise, you'll get an unexpected interviewee.
Such a brilliant movie. Just
Well,
thank you for it. Thank you.
thank you.
Scott, quick reminder about the chat, and then just please say your name and outlet, and you can begin.
Great. Hi, Scott Orlin with Cinema-Magazine. I am here with Golden Globe and Academy Award winning actor Eddie Redmayne, this time for his new film, The Trial of the Chicago Seven. Eddie, you step into the shoes of somebody who actually walked on Earth. I mean, he's a living person. What type of research did you do in the sense that there's a lot of archival footage on Tom Hayden? Were there little mannerisms you wanted to pick up, little insights?
No, it's whenever you play. Now I sort of suddenly realize I've done quite a few films in which I've played real people, or actually, even if you do literary adaptations, you do a certain amount of research. If it's a book, you read all of the book. For me, if it's on this film, it was looking at documentary material, looking at the footage from the riots, looking at sketches from the courtroom, looking at trial transcripts. You kind of take all that in, but at the same point, Aaron was quite adamant from the word go that this was, he described it quite beautifully as a painting rather than a photograph. And so you sort of do all that research. You're conscious that it was a moment in Tom's life. I was also conscious that I didn't look much like Tom, that there wasn't the time or the budget to do great sort of prosthetic or sort of, so there were sort of limitations, but you do what you can. Ultimately, you kind of imbibe all the information in order to then hope that when you're playing the scenes with this extraordinary troupe of actors, you get to kind of bounce off what they're doing, jazz with them.
Watching this movie, we like to think in optimistic tones that a courtroom is the temple of justice. That when you walk in there, each person will be treated fairly. And we see in this movie, that isn't the case. How eye-opening was it for you about courtrooms and how manipulative they could be?
Do you know, it was pretty extraordinary to read. It was pretty extraordinary. I mean, I think that the film sort of underscores that justice isn't always blind. Ultimately it worked out for the Chicago Seven, but for someone like Bobby, it was incredibly difficult and challenging, and he was put in these horrendous situations. And the freedoms that we have today came from people who stood up for what they believed. And I hope that in some ways the film shows that can be complicated and it can be manipulated. And so, yeah, the short answer is it was pretty eye-opening.
Let me ask you, even going back to your childhood, was there ever a moment you can look at where you felt unjustly accused of something? Somebody thought you did something and you didn't do it?
Wow, Scott, you put me on the spot there. There are probably lots of things that I'd done wrong that I lied about. I mean, I had a brother. I had an older brother, so it was just sort of that. It was sort of endlessly the two of us going and kind of, saying, no, but he said, but I mean, that's about the extremity of my interaction with the justice system. God, that's pathetic. I don't have a better answer.
That's good. No, that's okay. I just didn't know if there was something
interestingly, in relation to brothers, one of the great insights for me on this film was when Aaron basically described, in some senses, Bobby Seale's story is the heart of the emotional heart of the film, but it's also, Aaron described it as a film about brothers. He described Abby and Tom as sort of brothers who were aspiring for the same thing, but had completely different ways of attacking it. And so that was interesting, because actually leaning into kind of my relationship with my brothers was quite helpful.
Let me ask you about Aaron Sorkin, because his stamp on something is so unique. I mean, especially his words, where people talk, you don't change an Aaron Sorkin dialogue. Yeah. What, as an acting exercise for you, what did it kind of give you an insight to that maybe you haven't had with other directors or other writers?
Um, so the truth of that is that on stage, like the text, the play script is sort of sacrosanct, if that's a word, sacred, you know, often because it's published and been performed thousands of times before. One of the early jobs I did on film, and I'd never really done, you know, I just started in theatre. I did a film, and because it was a film, I thought it was, you know, that this script was going to be brilliant. It transpired that the script wasn't good, and my work was bad, probably because I was doing some slightly shoddy acting, but also because some of the words were unspeakable. Now, when you've like then seen that on screen and gone, oh my God, I look horrendous, but why did I let myself say those words? It can be a quick kind of, you go, oh, you suddenly lose faith sometimes in the completeness of writing. And you go, if something doesn't sound right in my voice, maybe I'll just change that word or that little thing. Whereas if you're doing an Edward Albee play, it's your fault if it doesn't sound right. It's definitely not the writing's fault. And when you read something, now I always try to stick to the text in every way I can. And if I change it, I'll talk to a writer about it and express why for me it doesn't quite work. But with Aaron's words, they were just, they were delicate. They were like notes of music. Exactly how it played. But I said to Aaron, like, I basically, to prepare that scene, I had to know what was being said in the flashback bits. Do you see what I mean? So that I could get from like, so in my head, this was before I'd met Aaron, and you know, he was a bit of a sort of godlike figure to me. I was like, can I ask him to write those bits for me? Or maybe that's like wrong to ask that. So maybe I'll just write them myself, like how I imagine they'll be. So I wrote out these pages and pages of what I thought that, you know, just in order that I could know how to get from one place emotionally to the next. And I sent this email to Aaron Sorkin being like, Aaron, I was just wondering about these bits in between, and I'm sure, you know, I'm sure you're too busy to ever write that stuff for me. So I've gone ahead and done it, but please ignore it if you, anyway. So I basically sent writing to Aaron Sorkin saying, and he sent like a one-liner back going, thanks, Eddie. I'll work on this. And he sort of, anyway, sweetly, he did write, but I think I must be like the only, sort of one of the only ridiculous people in the world that's ever suggested writing to Aaron Sorkin. But he wrote the whole scene for Mark and I. So when we shot that scene, even though it cuts in and out, we shot the whole, you know, thing.
It worked out perfectly. Eddie Redmayne, as always, such a pleasure. Congratulations on the movie. And this is Scott Orlin. Till next time.
Bye-bye.
Stay healthy and sane.
Do, mate. Bye.